Ladies and gentlemen, MrCropper here. We're going to be doing Lefty Philosophy's final takedown. This guy is not sufficient for the task. So we are going to be doing it on here because the audio is not good enough to do the normal thing. Where is it? Here? Oh, I've got something that's uploading, not quite uploaded yet. Oh, here it is. Okay. His audio is not very good, but we're going to do it on here. It's a 24-minute video. I can't promise you that he is very substantive, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry if he lets you down.
Objectivism, and this gentleman here, who goes by the name MrCropper, has done a response video. It's pretty funny, actually. So we'll have some fun going over some of his critiques. Probably won't spend that much on it because I honestly don't think he understands my arguments. He sets up a lot of straw men, and he also doesn't understand much about objectivism.
That's laughable. That's laughable. That's the pot calling the kettle black. So you'll have to watch the videos for yourself if you haven't, and I'll leave some links to those down below. But here's a guy who says that Ayn Rand's axioms aren't necessarily true. They're just the basic assumptions that she uses to build her philosophy. And I don't understand objectivism
either, even though he is an objectivist. I will premise this by saying I've never taken this in school. I've learned everything about Ayn Rand and objectivism through watching hours and hours of her interviews and reading her philosophy and scouring through the internet to understand more about objectivism.
I don't know how much time he's really spent, but it occurs to me, if he has spent hours and hours reading and listening to objectivist stuff, and he still doesn't grasp that the axioms are true, that existence exists and you exist, and he still thinks that that's just a wildly insane hypothesis, wow, I'm just starting to wonder what's between his ears.
Before I say anything bad about objectivism, I will say that there is one good thing about objectivism, and that's Ayn Rand's takedown of religion.
Now, I guess I should have done this when he did his video before. He mentioned Ayn Rand something, and that's why she was an atheist. And I can't remember what it was. It was so stupid. And to hear him say this now, that's the one good thing about objectivism, I really wish I would have made note of whatever it was that he was confused about before, about why Ayn Rand's an atheist. The reason Ayn Rand is an atheist is because there's not a God. Nobody's proven to her that there's a God. Nobody showed her any evidence that there's a God. Therefore, she's an atheist. And I can't even remember what sort of equivocal junk he had come up with. But that's, now he says, that's the only good thing about objectivism. And he didn't even understand the reason for it. So, I just put it to the fair-mindedness of the audience. A guy who thinks that Ayn Rand's atheism is the only good thing about objectivism and simultaneously has no idea why she's an atheist. He's amazing. He's amazing.
And how she does that. If you're an atheist or an anti-theist or an agnostic, she can really appeal to you because she has some pretty solid ways and arguments against the idea of God and against religion. So that is one good thing that comes out of objectivism. Anyway, how's the audio? Can you hear anything? Hopefully the audio is good. I don't really know because I can't hear myself. So let me know if the audio is good or not. We'll start listening to this video. It's pretty funny, actually. Here we go. Let me know if you can hear.
All right, now I don't know how long I should let myself speak here. but I go on quite a bit. He does make some comments over me. Let's skip forward a bit here.
So let's take a look. Just keep that in mind as a possible description. And
It'd take it seriously. Like
4
4 videos and
philosophy seriously in a certain way, then you'll see that those things are not.
Now, when I tell him to take his philosophy seriously, what I mean is, you know, when Ayn Rand says that the axiom means that we exist, take that seriously. Don't just dismiss her and say, oh, she doesn't really mean that, of course. Take her seriously. Take her at her word. Why do you dismiss her and say that that's just a wild hypothesis no one could ever really mean? These don't have to be true. They're just her premises. Why do you say that? Take her seriously. What if they are true? They are true. You can't deny them. You assume they're true every time you open your mouth. That's what I mean by take it seriously. Does he take it seriously? He thinks this is just a parlor game. He thinks this is all just mind games.
Serious objections that you've been taught.
now he hasn't seen my entire series on Ayn Rand. I have like 4 videos in which I break down and attempt to steel man her position and her philosophy.
Yeah, I watched your attempt to steelman her position, and every time you said a sentence of your own, you went disaster zone. You said that the axioms aren't necessarily true. You said she doesn't actually advocate selfishness. She actually advocates rational self-interest, not selfishness. I mean, you were all over the map, equivocating and apologizing for her. Oy.
Philosophy. He hasn't watched those yet. He just went straight to.
And I did not watch all of them. That first one, I have to say, his introductory one, if you took out the 3 or 4 sentences where he's tried to stitch the material together, it's all fine. He's just reading from source material. What's funny is that he can read all that source material and not get it. That's what's funny.
To the critique and started saying it. So he keeps saying if I took it seriously, I did take it seriously because I was interested in learning a new philosophy. A lot of things just...
See, he just takes it as a new philosophy. There's 19 philosophies in his memory bank, and now he's learning a 20th. Nothing different about it. It's just, there's Kant, there's Hegel, there's Rand. It's just another philosophy. We look at her basic assumptions. We look at how she develops them. We think about it. We play with it. Then we put it back in the drawer. It's just a philosophy. See?
I didn't agree with.
But you preempt the philosophy with your objections. The objections are not legitimate. So let's take a look. Just keep that in mind as doubt my senses.
I said it may not be true, that everything, all of the data and the input that your eyes, your ears...
Yeah, okay. The data may not be true. Now, I've just gone over how we must have some connection to reality, or else we wouldn't be able to define color blindness, and we wouldn't be able to come to any idea that our senses are incorrect in hallucinations or delusions or optical illusions. We wouldn't know what those were. We wouldn't be able to define them unless there was some healthy state of sensory perception. As I speak right now, I'm wearing eyeglasses that correct my blurred vision. How do I know that it's blurred vision? Because I can walk up to a mailbox or something and it's not a big fuzzy object. It actually has sharp edges. So I know objectively that that's not a fuzzy object. So when my eyes say that it is, then I go to the ophthalmologist. Somebody said they were seeing spots one time. And the blonde girl said, have you... They said, no, I can't remember the joke. All right, now I got to drop it because I can't remember the joke off the top of my head. Okay, back to this guy and his disaster.
Your senses bring into your brain that it may not be complete or perfect data.
So it might not be complete or perfect data, he says. There is the chance, there is the option of failure, there is the option of blindness. That's why I'm wearing glasses, because my eyes are fuzzy. So I guess I'm saying to him, correct, but how do we know that? Can you hear this? And I said the question about 9 times, and he actually listened to it on screen. How do we know that this is blurry vision? How do we know that it's color blindness? We know it because we can measure it against reality. Well, how do we know reality? Because our senses connect us to reality. So he says, because there is some possibility that sometime we can possibly be wrong about something that we sense, therefore what? Therefore what, Lefty? Therefore what? What follows from that? See, we've already lost him. He can't think. If he's listening to my voice right now, he's already lost in La La Land. Let me connect the thought for you. Therefore, we must have some connection to reality. Our senses connect us to reality. Now, he is a total D type. In Leonard Peikoff's dim hypothesis, this guy is a D2. When you say everything to him just right here, I've just said, your senses must be connecting you to reality, or else we wouldn't be able to define color blindness as a blindness of some kind. We wouldn't be able to wear eyeglasses to correct our senses unless our senses connected to a real reality we could measure it against. When I say these things to him, his response is going to be, well, yeah, but some people can be born colorblind. Okay, he's a D type. He's just going to destroy any integration. Even if you ask him, you say, that doesn't dismiss the fact that I'm making this integration. Now what do you say? All he can do is name the fact again that you've just dismissed. What about color blindness? We wouldn't know how to define it as color blindness if we didn't know how the colors actually looked to a regular healthy eye. And bees see a different stuff than we do, and crabs see an X-ray. Fine. And we know that. We know that we have a nature to our mind. You see, that's his real problem here. He says, because we are not infallible, therefore. That's what really bugs him, because he's a Platonist and he's a D type. So he either wants humans to be perfectly infallible, or they are REKT, and we can't trust them. And he wants to get together in a group of 20 or 30 or 9 people and ask if something's the color red. And if it's red, then, oh my God, he's a mess.
Data. That's all I said. I didn't say that there was no way that, or I didn't say everything that your senses can be doubted. I was just saying that it's possible, because I do give some examples later in my video, which he goes over. But that's all I was saying.
Now, if that's all you're saying is that sometimes it's possible for our senses to be wrong, then why do you dismiss Ayn Rand's axioms? Why? So if our senses tell us there is a reality, that's correct, and we know something about that reality, and that's correct, and sometimes that our senses can be wrong, and that we call that color blindness or blurred vision, so we do something to correct that, or we try to learn about it and know about it. So then you go and say that we don't necessarily exist or have a mind. See, this is all just a floating parlor game for him. He'll admit that senses are sometimes right, but what are they right about? Reality? No, there's no reality.
And he seems to think that I was like, you can't trust your senses at all.
Yeah, it's either or. Either you trust the fact that our senses connect us to reality, or you don't. Now, I say they do connect us to reality, and we can wear glasses to correct blurry vision, and we can define color blindness because our senses connect us to reality. I haven't said that we're omniscient. I've said that color blindness is possible. I did not claim omniscience, and I don't need to. You are measuring us against omniscience. You're saying we have to know absolutely everything, because if there's even one person who could possibly be born colorblind, then what? How would we know they're colorblind? What follows? You cannot follow a thought, can you?
What you said, is it true? You're asking if the knowledge from your senses is true. How would you go about doubting that knowledge? I mean, what other source of knowledge do you have? You go here, you're going to talk about illusions. How do we know they're illusions? You're going to talk about the hand experiment. How do we know we can trick the mind if we don't know that there's a real reality? How do we know that they're illusions if we don't know what it means for the eyeball to work correctly? What's the definition of an illusion? It's when the eyeball was mistaken.
What's the definition of an illusion? It's when the eyeball was mistaken. Look at his face. He doesn't get that. He's not getting anything. Nothing's getting through his thick skull.
What does it mean to be mistaken? It means not correct. That means there's something that's correct, doesn't it? But you just assume maybe not. Maybe everything's incorrect. Well, what's your grounds for saying that? Until you have grounds for saying that, you should probably just assume that your senses are correct because you have no reason to think they're not. And every time.
Okay, so this is my first problem with him, is that there are reasons to think that your sensory input may not always be correct.
That is not the question I put to you, you lame brain idiot. I said, what makes you think that your senses aren't correct? I did not say that they are always correct. See, you are measuring it against omniscience. You're saying because we are not a God who always knows everything perfectly, therefore.
You think they're not. And every time.
Okay, so this is my first problem with him, is that there are reasons to think that your sensory inputs may not always be correct.
May not always be correct? Look at the guy on the screen in front of you, you moron. He's wearing glasses. God, you're so stupid. All right, ladies and gentlemen. I'm done with him. He's so stupid. Lefty philosophy. This is why he says, I remember this is why I do not engage with objectivists anymore. Oh my God. Go to 7-Eleven and buy some IQ.